Hello and welcome back to Big Mike Sports, Atlanta born, Carolina raised, Detroit driven. I'm your host as always, Big Mike.
The one and only. Yeah, I'm back!
And we find ourselves in familiar territory this week after the Braves once again fell to the Phillies in the playoffs for the second year in a row. The Braves lineup totally failed to show up in those back-to-back games back in Philly, and really the whole series, to be honest. The game was tighter. This last game was Strider on the mound, with the Braves being able to keep it close with their pitching, kind of dominating the Phillies lineup for a little while until the game finally got broken open by guys like Harper and Castellanos once again.
Here's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos.
Homering at the worst possible times, and that's really what put the Braves to bed and ended their season. The Braves win in Game 2 was crucial, but it only seemed to inspire the Phillies rather than the Braves to go on and win the series. As Harper continued to crush the team, kind of used the whole base running error as motivation, really staring down Arcia, who was talking after that game, after Bryce Harper went yard. And Trey Turner continuing his dominant run to end out this season. I don't know what is going on with him, but he just seems to age really well. It gets better with age, like a fine wine. I remember when he was all right at the beginning of his career, but definitely not at this level. I don't know how he keeps continuing to get better as his career progresses, but he does. And then, of course, Castellanos with those home runs at just the worst possible times once again. I will say, however, that the Braves came within about 10 or 20 feet away from making the game interesting and taking the lead off of a potential Acuna grand slam. But that ball died at the wall and ended up being caught by the center fielder. And then a wild pitch before that, earlier in the at-bat, the runner on third could have scored on that, but for whatever reason, he got held up, and they did not end up scoring that run. And that one run earlier in the game ended up being all they could put together. The whole lineup, like I said, really, really quiet this series. Who knows whether that has to do with the MLB postseason format, with a huge layoff between the wild card teams battling it out and the Braves and other bye-week teams just kind of sitting at home doing nothing. Gives the wild card teams a lot of momentum. And the postseason seems to be not very kind to 100-win teams. Seems like every time there's a dominant team in the regular season in the MLB, they always end up finding a way to lose relatively early in the postseason. And this instance was no different. Postseason is really kind to these kind of 80 or 90-win teams, as we saw the Braves did back when they went to their own World Series. So those teams that kind of get hot at the end of the season and play their way in and can kind of continue to play really well seem to do a lot better than those teams that seem to peak in the regular season. So kind of interesting how the baseball playoffs end up. Yeah, brutal performance from the Braves lineup in this series. Seems like only Riley was the only real consistent batter for the Braves. Olsen did a little bit, and then of course d'Arnaud had a home run. But the rest of the lineup, pretty quiet in this series, and after such a dominant performance from the lineup over the course of the regular season, one of the best lineups in the regular season that Major League Baseball has ever seen, it seemed really just a bad way to go, to have your lineup not do very well there. And, that's just nothing you can really do about that. Just got to go into the next season, I guess, and hope you can do it again. I mean, this was a really good team. The pitching did exactly what it had to do for the most part. That first game back in Philly obviously didn't go as well, as the Phillies put up 10 on them. But maybe the team just wasn't inspired enough on the Braves' part. I mean, the Phillies have such a major home field advantage with their fans and everything really inspiring the team. And the whole performance in that game, too, that the Braves ended up winning, the Phillies seemed to use that as fire to keep themselves going. And the Braves just seemed to not really use it as much of anything, continuing to be, you don't want to say pathetic, but kind of pathetic by their standards. And, of course, the Rangers, their fans were helping the team get inspired while listening to the band Creed and blasting Creed over the loudspeakers. And honestly, if the home team played Creed over the loudspeakers, that would demoralize me on an away team as well. Yeah, that Orioles-Braves World Series that we really wanted to see happen completely died within, the first week or two of the postseason. So I really went out with a whimper with these 100-win teams, won a surprise 100-win teams, feel-good story of the season, and one that we kind of, expected to win 100 games like this. But on the Braves' part, we also expected them to go to the World Series, and that's not happening. So really trying not to be bitter here with such a great team bowing out so callously, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not a good feeling if you're a Braves fan. And these 100-win teams just can't get anything going. I mean, remember that Mariners team that won, 116 games as well, and got eliminated from the postseason before reaching the World Series. That is the Mariners, though, so that's a whole nother bucket of worms to open. But yeah, not a good feeling for the Braves.
That's terrible.
Let's keep this week of disappointment going as we also cover App State's really, really just not good looking loss at home in Boone against Coastal Carolina on Tuesday. Coastal Carolina got the ball first in that game and immediately got tackled for a loss by the App State defense. Really made you think, yeah, maybe App State came to play in this game and their defense was really, trying to play super inspired to try and defend their home turf. And I feel like there was another one or two after that in relatively quick succession. So it made you think, okay, maybe they'll come out and dominate this game. But it was somehow all downhill from there as Coastal gashed the defense through the air. Like, it just seemed that they just needed one. Like, after those two tackle for losses, there was one, 10 or 15 yard passing play to get them the first down. Then after that, the dam just kind of opened, just kind of crumbled. They kept gashing them on those long passing plays, and before long, App State was quickly in the first quarter down 14-0. So not where you want to be at home. The crowd was absolutely dead when that second Coastal Carolina touchdown came. However, App State did manage to come crawling back, but there were a lot of defensive miscues, and a costly fumble sunk them to their fate, and yet another bad loss at home to a team that you feel like you need to beat. I mean, like I've said before, I don't know what it is about App State at home, but they just seem to always lose these disappointing games when they really need them. So it sucks too, because if you're at home, you really want that to be a good home field advantage, and I mean, App State in theory does have a good home field advantage because the students and the fans always come out and fill the stadium up. I mean, they are continuously breaking capacity records in that stadium. But it never seems to matter because the team never seems to show up. So I don't know what the deal is with this team. They're just really inconsistent. They just can't keep playing like this and expect to win or even make a bowl game at this point. Like I said in the previous episode, they're going to have a really, really difficult November if they keep playing like this with the level of competition that they're going to end up facing to end the season. Still have a couple games left this month to kind of get yourself right. They got Southern Miss at home on homecoming night. Southern Miss is a 1-5 team. So hopefully they'll be able to use that and try and get at least a little momentum going into November, because those games are not going to be easy at all. Both teams, both Coastal and App State, are now bottom dwellers in the Fun Belt Conference. Kind of weird because these teams, when they first came up, were instant contenders, but now they've been replaced by some other newcomers, such as James Madison, kind of taking the mantle there. This was Coastal Carolina's first conference win of the season. And so they're now 1-2 in the conference, I'm pretty sure. And then this also drops App State down to 1-2 in the conference. So not where either team really wants to be. Both 3-3 on the season. Season is still not over at all, but we can definitely see it going downhill for App State, especially with that November slate coming up. If they drop each and every one of those tough November games, they're going to end up 5-7 and not make a bowl game, which is a goal that is really important for that Mountaineer program and how proud and prideful they are. Grayson McCall was flinging the ball around for Coastal. Like we said, he ended up with 376 yards or something crazy like that. 569 total yards of offense for Coastal, 25 first downs, and they also own the time of possession as well. So the score may make it seem a little closer of a game than it actually was. App State, forgot to mention, they had some pretty crazy passing plays as well. Some really, really long passing plays. But like I say, they're just pretty inconsistent. The completion percentage wasn't quite there. I think Aguilar's completion percentage was about 50%. So when they hit them deep, but you got to be able to get more passes complete than they did. So yeah, where to go for this App State team? Well, you hope that they can move forward after a loss like this, but disappointing losses are really hard to come back from. Really hard to get the momentum generated once again, which is true for another team that we'll cover once we get into this Miami UNC game that's going to go down this weekend. So, App State and Miami, similar circumstances. Let's see how they bounce back.
Perhaps.
So this is going to be a big one in Keenan Memorial Stadium on Saturday as the Miami Hurricanes, coming off of that tough loss to our Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, go to visit UNC Tar Heels in a game that has some pretty big ACC title implications still, despite that loss from Miami in pretty embarrassing fashion. North Carolina is still undefeated and 2-0 in the conference. Miami with that one conference loss, 0-1 in the conference right now, that being their only loss on the season. And this could be, well, this probably is the biggest game for UNC at home in a while because this is, your first real test against a really tough team that's going to really try and give you their all. At least we hope so, as they try and bounce back after that tough loss. So it'll be really interesting to see how Miami comes out because this is a team that I don't know if I would say relies heavily on the defense. I mean, the defense definitely helps them win a lot of games and keep them in it, but the offense is still really good as well. But that Miami rushing defense is a force to be reckoned with, only giving up 58 yards on the ground per game this season. And the passing defense pretty good as well, only giving up 210. And that is opposed to a UNC offense that's currently getting 500 yards per game. Most of that coming through the air, but also a very respectable 174 yards per game on the ground. The Miami defense is a really tenacious defense, really keeps them in games. And that UNC defense is not quite as good, but they're not bad themselves. So this could potentially be a pretty low-scoring, grinded-out game. I think you'd kind of prefer it that way if you're Miami, since grinding out a win after coming off of that big, big, heartbreaking loss. You don't really want to get into a game where you go down really quickly and it's like fast paced. You got to keep yourself in it. Because I don't know if they have the heart to do that and keep themselves in it like that. So Miami's definitely going to come out and try and play their brand of football. It's just a matter of whether UNC can kind of get things going with their own offense pretty quickly and maybe, strike fast since they're at home. Their crowd's going to be really in it. And this is an important game for UNC as well. It's going to be a huge battle of the wills as UNC tries to go on, I guess their biggest season ever, really. I mean, as they try and contend for an ACC title and potentially a playoff berth, which is exactly what Mac Brown came into town to try and do. They recruited very well all years that he's been there, and so it's time to, make it happen. And also, Miami's performance will be interesting to watch because apparently there's kind of some weird stuff bubbling under perhaps some sort of violations by the program. We have some sources telling us that much. And then also, you're coming off of that blunderous coaching decision. If you're their coach, who knows if he'll be confident to take risks and stuff like that, whether he'll be able to have confidence in his decision making, which can make it tough for a team if they don't believe in their coach or really believe in what they're doing there. So, a really tough matchup for both teams. Really, really excited to watch this one. Think it'll be a low-scoring game, but could be wrong. Either one of these teams does have the ability to get out to a pretty quick lead. The Miami offense seems kind of mercurial, especially after that last game against Georgia Tech, where it's only 3-0 at halftime. But Van Dyke's a pretty good quarterback, not quite as good as Drake May. Like, Van Dyke's not exactly a quarterback that's going to go out there and win a game for you all by himself, like Drake May has shown the ability to do, really put the game in his hands. But, really, really big matchup for the ACC. If UNC loses this game, I don't know if it necessarily knocks them out of the ACC title race. You definitely want either Florida State or Louisville to lose. And then I guess Duke, maybe if Duke beats Louisville, and then Duke would have to lose a conference game to somebody. I don't know. It gets kind of complicated. But a win for Miami would put them right back into the hunt for the ACC championship berth. So if you're Miami, you got to realize that the season's not over despite that one loss. You just got to come out and play hard, not second guess yourself, and beat yourself, really, because that's kind of what you did last week, isn't it? But if you keep compiling those blunders and those errors and keep letting them get to you, it's going to be a long day for you in that stadium. So Really excited to see this one. Really excited to see how both teams come out and kind of, you know, reckon with their past, their future, and how it affects the present.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid.
Now a little Lions preview as the Lions go on the road into Tampa Bay, trying to extend their winning streak on the season and make it to 5-1, and continue a little mini run of domination through the NFL perhaps. It'll be a tough one here in Tampa Bay as the Buccaneers have sneakily become one of the NFL's best teams. They are being consistently ranked in the top 10 in a bunch of people's NFL power rankings, and they've done it with a really stout defense. Raheem Morris quietly putting together one of those classic Bucks teams, like that one that went to the Super Bowl the first time under Gruden, where it's just all defense and the offense just does just enough with a game manager, veteran quarterback. And it's good for him, especially with all that criticism that he took with that last season with Tom Brady and everything like that. So always good to see a coach like that do well after coming under fire a little bit. He's really turned it around there, so big credit to him. The Lions injury report potentially a little concerning once again. I mean, the level of panic isn't quite there, but Jahmyr Gibbs out for the second straight week, along with Brian Branch, and then Jonah Jackson, who was kind of one of those surprise additions to the injury report during the week. He's going to be out of the game as well. Laporta has a chance to go. However, he is being listed as questionable right now, so hopefully he'll be able to go. A very important offensive weapon, one of the best tight ends in the league already. Really important role on this Lions offense, both as kind of an underneath, safety net kind of guy, but he's also shown a lot of potential with his vertical catching abilities and route running, scoring on a couple long touchdowns. Luckily for the Lions offense, Amon-Ra St. Brown will return to play in this game, so not 100% bad for the Lions offense. But, missing that key piece on the O-line kind of hurts too. But their backup offensive linemen have done pretty well plugging in so far over the course of the year. Definitely hurts to have Branch out once again. But also, the safety position, the backups there have really been stepping up. Tracy Walker really enjoying the time that he's gotten back in the lineup after being one of the Lions, well, frankly, the Lions' best safety and possibly best defender for a couple years there, back when the team was, they were trying. But Will Harris filling in admirably, and then those guys like Melifonwu also really revitalizing their careers. So I hope that they can continue that kind of run there with the defense. This could be a pretty low-scoring game. However, the Lions have shown the ability to put points up on the board pretty quickly with their deep play-action passing game. And some of this zone running scheme also is able to bust some pretty big runs every now and then. So the Buccaneers got to be careful. They'll probably end up playing ball control for a lot of the game. We'll see how the Lions go as well. They might try and do the same thing as both teams kind of try and shorten the length of the game and keep their offense on the field, keep their defenses rested. If one team turns the ball over a lot, that's probably going to be the team that loses, because that would mean that their defense is on the field for longer, which does not bode well for them. I mean, these are two pretty good defenses. The Buccaneers might be a better defense overall. I'm not sure. It could also be pretty equal. The Lions have the best running defense in the NFL, but their passing defense isn't the greatest. I mean, it's very good. Yeah, so I'm looking at it now. The Buccaneers are right up there in terms of rushing defense, and their passing defense is slightly better as well. But the Buccaneers don't really have much of a running game on offense, which is kind of surprising. Honestly, looking at their offensive stats now, I'm not sure how they won as many games as they did. I guess it was just the defense not really giving up a whole lot of points. Yeah, only 220 yards passing per game on the season, along with 87 rushing yards. I guess Baker just does just enough for the offense to be able to win. I don't know. This could potentially be the most difficult defense they've faced this year as well. I'm not as familiar with the Buccaneers' schedule so far this year. Okay, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, they've the best defense they faced is probably Philly, and they lost by 14 points there. So who knows? Maybe the Buccaneers are just kind of a paper tiger, and the Lions could push them over really quickly. I mean, the Lions are coming off that huge victory against the Panthers at home, 42-24, which is exactly what we wanted to see from the Lions, not playing down to their competition. So if they can keep that streak alive of playing really well, it could potentially be a walkover. I mean, you always want to keep the options open. You don't want to like bluster too much and say that they're going to blow them out when this is a tough opponent. They played really tough football over the course of the year, but the possibility is always there. The Lions are a really good team. I'm really looking forward to see another big test here because the Chiefs and Seahawks obviously were huge tests. The Lions passed one and failed. I don't know if I would say failed the other. They got unlucky in the Seahawks game. Maybe we'll just put it that way. But yeah, this will be another good test. Interesting to see how they play, especially with those last two games that they played getting out of hand kind of early. Maybe the Lions offense will try and strike fast again and put up some points early and try and put them out because, of the limitations potentially of the Buccaneers offense. But it's a tough defense that they're going to be facing, that's for sure. The battle between the Bucs rushing defense and the Lions rushing offense, it's good on good. With the Buccaneers rushing defense being really good, and the Lions have one of the best rushing offenses in the league behind Dave Montgomery. Probably going to be another 30 carry game for Montgomery. Who knows? That dude's a workhorse. But yeah, those Buccaneers receivers, however, are continuing to show that they're really good. Mike Evans continuing his run of dominance that's lasted for probably a decade at this point. Look for a big game from Evans if he can get open. The Lions have given up a few passing touchdowns over the course of the season, so Mike Evans might have another big game. It remains to be seen there. Yeah, only 68 points allowed by the Buccaneers on 148 scored by the Lions. 107 points against for the Lions, and only 84 points for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers really want to keep this one close and low scoring. Detroit wants to get this team out of the way pretty quickly. So yeah, if you average it out, who knows, maybe like 24-21 win for the Lions is what I'm thinking here. This wouldn't be the first time that the Lions went into Tampa and won a game, and the first Lions road victory in like years and years that occurred. I think it was 2010. It was their first road victory in however many years that came at Tampa Bay. So the Lions historically do pretty well when they go down to Tampa. Of course, Tom Brady destroyed them at Ford Field that one season, 47-7. I think that was 2020. I think that was Patricia's last season. So it could be, I don't know how many guys on the team right now exactly remember that or were there for that and dressed and played in that game, but that could be some motivation for those guys. But yeah, historically Detroit does pretty well going down to Tampa, so hopefully they'll continue doing the same and perform well once again. It'll be tough to have some of these players out. Oh, hey, let's look at the Buccaneers injury report real quick if we can. Okay, they're only showing Shaq Barrett to be questionable, so they're going to have a healthy team. They're going to throw their best at you because they think that they have a lot to play for as well, being on top of that division at the moment, and trying to play themselves into the playoffs and potentially making some noise there. So Buccaneers definitely an underdog in this game. They're going to give them their all. 44.6% chance according to ESPN for the Buccaneers to win versus 55% for Detroit. And Detroit Lions are 3-point favorite right now. Over under only 42.5. So with that 24-21 score prediction, we're leaning over, but only a little bit, and Detroit pushing right now. I don't know. I want to say I would lay the points with the Lions, but yeah, maybe if it was like 4.5, I would take the Buccaneers. I think I'm comfortable laying the 3 points with the Lions. They'll probably end up pushing, but yeah, looking forward to hopefully another Detroit Lions win. And if anything, just want the team to play hard and compete against a good team, because that's all you can really ask for. Yeah! That's what we're doing today. The NBA preseason has started up, and the Hawks rattling off a couple of 1-point victories, which is interesting. We'll go over that a little more in a future episode, but it's something that I've been following and really intrigued by because last season the Hawks went the perfect 41-41, never being more than one game away from 500, like basically the entire season. Real anomaly, one of the only teams that have ever done that. It would be interesting if, after what they did last season, in that case, if they just come out this next season and have a lot of really close wins like they have been in the preseason. You can't really judge the preseason a whole lot for what is going to happen in the regular season, but just an interesting thought I had if the Hawks become this cardiac, ice in their vein team, as we've seen Trae Young do before. Really excited for this upcoming Hawks season as the Hawks have their first full year under Quinn Snyder. So yeah, we'll cover that and some more NBA stuff a little later. Thanks for watching this time. We'll try and do better next time.